Hello, and good morning. Welcome back for another exciting episode of Sit Down, Stand Up, the podcast where we talk about, hopefully, not unfunny stories. I'm joined by my mighty mug of marketing, and today we're going to be talking about, I don't know exactly what, but I do have a somewhat of a vague idea, because last time I was talking about memory and how I think that if you were to take my entire 45 years of existence, I probably have 2 hours of back-to-back memories in total, which is terrifying to think about, that there's that much of my life that I completely forgot about, that I just simply don't remember. And crazily enough, even the things that I thought I remember, I don't remember, because it prompted a conversation with my mother about memories and things. And we were talking about actually one of the scenarios I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, which was my grandparents passing away, that my grandfather had passed away. He didn't want to live without his chummy. He passed away, and a week later, my grandmother died. That's not true at all. And I also thought that it happened the summer of my 7th grade year, which also didn't happen. So it's crazy. And the only way, here's the funny thing though, the way that we were able to work out. So both me and my mother were wrong about where we had mismemories about where we were. We misremembered at what time things happened. But here's how I nailed down the timeline, at least for some of the stuff that I remembered. First, so they actually passed away. My grandfather did pass away first, but it was like 3 months. He passed away later in the summer. She passed away in late September, early October. So it wasn't a week, but it was relatively soon thereafter. And apparently he had some lung issues I didn't know about. I thought he was just, kind of in rough health because of the fall, but it turned out he was actually dealing with some lung respiratory issues as well that I simply didn't know about. But the way we narrowed it down was the release of media. And that is crazy, because I've done this many times. I don't know about you, but it's one of the great things about having movies and music and albums and all these different things is if something happens at the time that they come out, or around the time that they come out, that they hit theaters, or that the album comes out, you have a punctuation mark, a way to positively identify the time that something happened. For example, I know that in the summer when all this went down, I thought it was my 7th grade year, but in the summer when it went down, I had a birthday, and my parents took me to the local Toys R Us, and I was allowed to look around and see what I wanted as a birthday present. And the two biggest options for me was, one, the Space Monorail, Lego Space Monorail. The second one, there was one that came out, it was white, and primary colors were like white, blue, and red. And it kind of went along with the kind of the Space Police type theme that was going on back at the time. That was the first one that came out. My friend Ben actually had that one, but like when we were growing up. But then they came out with a second one, and it was more like teal and lime green and black and white. And I know that might sound a little ridiculous color scheme, but it looks really, really good. Anyway, that had just come out. It was relatively new. And my second option was Mega Man X2. Now, in hindsight, for those of you who don't know, it's a game series, video games for the Super Nintendo. The first one, Mega Man X, came out. When I bought it, I got a 2 for $10 deal at KB Toys. For anybody who remembers KB Toys, I bought Mega Man X and Batman Returns. I got them both for $5 each, effectively. I bought 2 for $10. So in my mind, and I loved Mega Man X, I love the game, but in my mind, Mega Man X isn't an expensive game. Why would it be? So it had just released for $50, but I didn't have my system with me. We didn't bring my Super Nintendo to Florida. So I was like, well, if I get it, it's just going to sit there. All I can do is read the manual. I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. And the Legos, come on, it's a Lego monorail. How can I say no to that? So I ended up getting the Lego monorail. But, and as it would go on, not cruel irony, just interestingly enough, the Mega Man X2 and X3, for whatever reason, Capcom did not export a lot of those to America. So while the market was flooded with Mega Man X, which is why I got it for so cheap, it was much harder to find X2 and X3. And in fact, there was no toy store. When we got back to Virginia, I wanted to find X2 because I had some birthday money. So I wanted to find X2. Couldn't find it anywhere. Fast forward to now, if you actually have a good not even a good condition game, they go for $200-$300. If you have one complete in a box, which I would, because I kept all my boxes. Well, to be fair, I don't have them now. I got rid of them because I was moving around so much, and I couldn't afford to move all like empty packaging. Like I couldn't do that. And I had no idea that they would be collectible things later on. So I had I think 15 different games, Super Nintendo games, many of which I bought for myself, some I got for Christmas, but I kept the box for all of them. I kept the boxes, the packaging, everything but the flimsy stuff that come in the little clear plastic wrap. I didn't keep that. Everything else I kept, and I kept them in pristine condition. In fact, this sounds really stupid retro in retrospect, but I wanted to make use of the boxes because I thought the boxes were cool. I thought it was cool to have the artwork and it just, I don't know, there was something really cool about the boxes. And they had little trays in there that the games came in. And so I would actually hide if I got like Werther's Originals or Jolly Ranchers. In fact, those were my two go-tos, because Werther's Originals were like caramel and Jolly Ranchers were fruity. So you kind of have a little mix of both. And so I would stash my Werther's Originals and Jolly Ranchers in different boxes. Star Fox box had, I believe it was the caramel, and then Donkey Kong Country had the Werther's Original, had the Jolly Ranchers. Yeah. And so, yeah, I would store them in there. And if I had more, I would put them in some of the other boxes. Anyway, it was really cool. I enjoyed having the boxes. I enjoy keeping things pristine, clean, crisp corners, all that good stuff. But yeah, I went off to college, and for a while I was able to keep a lot of my stuff at the house, but then it was like, okay, son, how much stuff do you need here? Because they're trying to make use of the house and the rooms and everything, and there's only so much space in the attic. So there was a lot of stuff that I either just said, oh yeah, just go ahead and get rid of it, or whatever. To my regret, but considering I've moved like 7 or 8 times since then, and some of those times was just whatever I could fit in my car, it was not going to be feasible for me to keep all of my cool stuff. So I've had to rebuy a lot of things that otherwise I would still have. There was really no feasible way for me to take them with me. But getting back to my point, how cool this is, if you look up the Space Monorail, the second version, it came out in 1994. Okay. Mega Man X did not release until 1995. So, ergo vis-a-vis, the summer of my 15th birthday was when we were in Florida. So both my mom and I thought we were there when I was much younger. My mom was like, your sister couldn't have been more than like 4 or 5. I was like, well, that would make me like 9 or 10. That would put me at 5th grade. And that doesn't make any sense because also, as I said before, I was very fortunate in that my grandparents' passing was unfortunate, but my grandfather had a 1988 Bonneville that he had, that he let me, that we were able to, it was pretty beat up, had a lot of miles on it, but we were able to, to bring that home with us. And I remember it wasn't just sitting. The reason why we did that is because I was about to go into driver's ed. I was about to start being able to get my learner's permit. So I was like, well, hey, we don't know how long the car is going to last, but at least this will, give him a chance to practice driving. We don't have to let him drive one of our cars. So, but I know it didn't sit there for like 5 years waiting for me to become 15, because 15 is when you can get your learner's permit. So like it had to be a time roughly around the time where I would be able to drive. So at the very least 14, but probably 15. In fact, it was 15 because obviously I would not have seen the Mega Man X2 game in Toys R Us unless it had come out, but it didn't come out till 2015. So there we go. So we were able to triangulate the year by media release. And I've done that with movies too. And it was crazy because I know, okay, turn of the century, Matrix, 1999, Phantom Menace, 1999, I believe. Lord of the Rings was 99, 2000 maybe? And it was like 2000, maybe it was 2001, then 2002, then 2003, I think were the 3 releases there. But like that's turn of the century. If you want to remember what turn of the century CG was like, what turn of the century, movies were kind of big, what Hollywood was doing at that time, like that was it. What I was watching in college. And then, you go off a game system. Nintendo 64 came out in 1997 because I was 17. I was working in Toys R Us when it hit. It's a great way of being able to anchor different points of your life. And then it can trigger other memories because you remember, oh, I got that. Well, my friend also had this and he brought this over. And oh yeah, I remember that friend that I totally forgot about. But I remember now because he had a video game that I liked. And that sounds superficial, but that's just a hypothetical memory there. I never borrowed games from somebody I wasn't good friends with. Oh, I'm trying to remember the guy's name now. I remember what he looked like. Was it Matt Gaskins? Michael? Oh no, now I'm embarrassed. There was one guy. He was the one who let me borrow Mega Man 3 for the Nintendo. Gillespie. Mike Gillespie. Oh, heck yes. Heck, I remember he was a rather rotund gentleman, black hair, really dark hair, kind of tangled like mine would be if it was longer. Mike Gillespie, that was it. Yep. We weren't super good friends, and it was third grade, I believe. Or no, see, I don't know. I do not have to look up when Mega Man 3 came out because I'm thinking I was in third grade because it was Mega Man 3, but those wouldn't go together. Japan did not release Mega Man 3 to coincide with my third grade year. That's just not how that would work. I mean, it could have been serendipitous, but I doubt it. But Mike Gillespie, yes, I do remember. Yeah, so we were acquaintances. You know, you have the school has its own version of friendships. You know, until you got older, very rarely did you ever become like best friends with somebody you didn't live near. So if you didn't know them going into school, meaning you weren't already in the same neighborhood, you weren't going to really be able to have too many opportunities to get closer because that would involve parents having to drive to other parents' house to pick their kid up after school. Like if somebody that was a school chum wanted to come over and hang out or spend the night, that would be fine. He could take, as long as he had a bus note or a permission slip to give to the bus driver, he could be allowed to take my bus home with me. And I remember that happening. Now that I've said that, I remember doing that a few times. I don't know that it was for sleepovers, but definitely I had friends. And I remember you had to get a note because the bus drivers knew all the kids after the first few weeks, you know who's on your bus and who isn't. So if you walk in there and there's a kid behind you, or a friend with you that the bus driver doesn't recognize, they're going to say, hey, you're on the wrong bus. But if you have a parent's note that says, my son's able to, and I did that too. I was able to jump on somebody else's school bus with a note from my mom saying, my son has my permission to ride whatever bus. Now, a forgery, I guess, is possible, but that was a great thing back then. You couldn't type stuff out. There was no like printing, typing things on a computer and printing them out was not a thing in my day. Especially in elementary school. We did have computer labs. You could print things out on they had the dot matrix printers. I mean, but they were very distinctly, matrix printers, and it was a white lines and the green lines, white lines, green lines, and the perforations on the side. But we didn't have those at home. And if you did, your parents sure as heck weren't putting your school notes on them because they were huge and ink is expensive and everything. So it wasn't a feasible thing. It had to be written. And kids, despite as we learned penmanship, we were learning to write in cursive. It was very noticeable when a kid tried to forge a note from their parents. So it was kind of a stopgap. Whereas now, all you'd have to do is forge the signature effectively, presuming that your parents would type out a letter. I don't know how it works in these modern times, chaotic modern times, but back then the point was you really couldn't counterfeit notes very well. It was pretty easy to see the shaky hand and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure some kids, deviants that they were able to pull it off, and really ultimately it's just kind of I don't know that it was a legal thing for the bus drivers, but it was just something to say, hey, my kid can go with you. Worst case scenario, like kids aren't just going to try to sneak on there and go to your house and surprise your parents and just be like, aha, I'm here now. You have to take care of me. So it was, little harm, little foul kind of a thing. But I remember that. But you have a friend come over, but then either my parents or whoever had the kid either would have to drive them to their house or their parents would have to come pick them up and drive them back. So that was just one step that parents typically weren't big on. And for parents like my parents, they're like, if I haven't met this kid's parents, I could not go over to anybody's house who my parents had not met their parents. And back then I was like, come on. But, in retrospect, as an adult now and knowing that the world has never been pristine, no matter what, when you grow up, you're always going to have predators. You're going to have people of dubious intent and what have you. And just to assume that because your kid has become tertiary friends with somebody else in school, which again, what exactly does that friendship entail? Hey, we both played, football on the playground during recess for like 3 days, or let me borrow a video game. These are not exactly strong bonds of friendship. They're as strong as you can get at that age, but it's not like you're going, yeah, no, Mom, let me tell you his values, his principles, which are a reflection of his parents and how he was raised. There was none of that. It was just, we had fun together. We want to have more fun together. That was about it. So I at the time it seemed unreasonable, especially because a lot of parents didn't do that. They didn't have that qualification. Like there were more kids that would come to our house than I was able to go to their house because more kids' parents were just going, oh yeah, heck yeah. I mean, of course we were known. I was known by my virtue and integrity, and my parents had legendary status. That's not true at all. But it just happened more often because my mom was more particular about it. And as an adult, it got older. I was like, hey, awesome. Like that was actually a good call. Not that I think anything would have happened, and nothing ever came close to happening with any of the friends that I did go to visit, but my mom had actually met them. So but she never, my point is she never met somebody and was like, no, son, we're not going. Oh no, actually she did. I think there were a couple kids where she met them. She's like, son, I don't have a great feeling. Like they can come here. I'm happy to have them come here, but I do not feel comfortable sending. And she wouldn't tell me, she wouldn't explain why. And maybe she wasn't even that overt about it. Maybe she, said like, oh, I don't know, son, maybe, we got a lot of stuff going on. How about they come over here? I think probably she did that more so than not. But then thinking back on it, applying an adult lens to that, I'm like, okay, I think that was her way of saying, I don't know about this. She wasn't outright decrying it. She was just saying, I don't know. And she didn't have a problem with the kids, whichever those friends were, because she always said, oh, they can come over here. I just don't know about going over there. So it did happen, but it wasn't very common. And because of how she said it, it may very well have been genuinely, she couldn't drive me or whatever, but it seemed like there were certain times where she just wasn't excited about me going over there. But yeah, but it's like so you really couldn't, it was very difficult to form really deep friendships with anybody you didn't go to school with, anybody you didn't live in your neighborhood. And honestly, at that point, there were very few kids in my neighborhood. Like it was just, I had a very different upbringing than most. I wasn't allowed to cross. Like I remember there was a street I was not allowed to cross for the longest time. A lot of the friends that I'd play with later, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, was in Greenvale Court, but Greenvale Court was across the street. I was not allowed to cross the street for the longest time because it wasn't a major street, especially back then, but it was the biggest street. It was Smoketown, was that Rollingwood Village, I think? I don't remember. It was kind of a main artery. Like there were a lot of developments that dumped into it, and there was a big hill, that came down. So you had a lot of people going faster than they normally would. And it could be a dangerous thing. And even looking left and right, you got cars coming in, there were cars leaving our development and coming into it. So I think a little bit may have been kind of, but then also, coming back, because over there was a creek, you go down a hill and there was like a creek down there. And also you could not be summoned easily the further you're away from the house. I don't know about y'all, but we didn't have phones. We didn't have pagers. If your parents wanted you home at any time other than the predetermined time, which was usually sundown, it would be mom or dad coming out on the back porch and screaming my name. And obviously, if I'm too far away, screaming my name doesn't really carry. And I could always say, I can't hear the most terrifying sound, and it chills me now, that I totally forgot about. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe you just got to talk about stuff and you'll remember it. Because I do remember the terror of hearing my dad and sometimes my mom calling my name. Because usually if the voice needed to carry, my mom would have my dad do it. But if I'm over in Greenville, like way down there, we're playing football. This is later on. And, and all of a sudden you hear something, your friend's like, wait, is that your mom? I'm like, oh no. Or your dad, and I stop. Hey! Like this bellow. I'm like, oh God. Oh, what did I do? Because really there was no reason, I had the usual thing, do your homework, make sure these chores are done, what have you. If I was getting called home before sundown, that was our established time. Hey, when it starts getting dark, you need to come home. Or I don't know when. And there were a couple times where I got called because I was pushing that a little bit. We were having a really good time. We could still see the ball. So I didn't want to leave. I don't want to stop having a good time. And so maybe I pushed it a little bit, and then I would get called. And then at least I knew, okay, that's what that was. But man, if I got called out 10 minutes after I got out there, an hour after I got out there, it was terrifying because it usually meant I'd done something really bad or something really bad had happened. Now, sometimes it was just, we're going out somewhere. Maybe I forgot because most of the time I think I had to say I'm leaving the house. I couldn't just leave, which this is all stuff that a lot of kids didn't deal with most of the time because they didn't have parents that were there when they got home. So they got home, they weren't accountable to anybody. I mean, maybe ultimately, okay, did you do your homework or what have you, but they didn't have parents calling them home. They didn't have parents looking for them. Their parents weren't there. So they could do whatever they could do as long as they could get away with it or their parents didn't know about it. Or even if they did, they were just like, I mean, they had the key. They had the little, I don't know if you know, they were like phone cords, you know, the little springy, twisty cord things. They were about this big around, came in different colors, and there would be a key on there. And so you'd have a key, and they'd wear it around their ankle or around their wrist or put it in their book bag. But they had the key to the home. I very rarely got the key to my home, and it was usually later. You know, I was in middle school or later, because my mom would be at a doctor's appointment or something when I got home, and so she'd want me to be able to get in the house. Because otherwise, I would have to go to a friend's house, which, I mean, twist my arm, but, you know, that was something she didn't want to impose on other mothers, I guess. I'm thinking back now as an adult would think. But as a kid, I loved it, man. If my mom, if the car was not there when I got home and she had not made any plans or told me or anything, because if she said, I might be home like 5 or 10 minutes late, so just wait on the steps. You know, that kind of sucked. It was like the worst of both worlds. Like I couldn't go inside the house. I couldn't go to a friend's house because she kind of pinned me down. She's like, it might be a few minutes. Sometimes it would be like a half hour. It wasn't really ever that long, but it felt that long. As a kid, any like 5 minutes feels like 1,000 years, which was so nice back in the day because, well, it sucked. It was great, but it sucked because it seemed like time moved so slow. So it's like I couldn't unlock all the cool stuff, all the responsibility. I mean, responsibility isn't cool. But, you know, but with great responsibility comes great power. You know, if you have more responsibility, that means you can stay out later. It means you could, get a job and have money to buy things. And back then, that's all you had to worry about. You weren't paying bills. So it was like, hey, job, fun money. Like that was great. I didn't have to worry about, you know, for Christmas or waiting for Christmas or a birthday to get something that I really wanted. Anyway. It was, you were trying to unlock those new levels, and it just seemed like time was stretching forever, and it took forever to get to an age. But then as soon as you got there, that's when time just does this. It was so messed up. But yeah, like 5 minutes felt like a year, it felt like an hour. I think 5 minutes was an hour at that age. So I can't really tell you how long. It wasn't very long though. But you know, my other friends didn't have that. They didn't have to worry about that. They didn't have those parameters. But I do remember, you know, getting called back. But sometimes it would be, hey, we're going out. And so either you need to be in the house or you need to come with us. You know, you just can't be out there, you know, playing without us anywhere nearby. Yeah, I think that was like the biggest one, or that I had left without telling them. Like maybe I told them like, hey, I'm going to be, when I get home, I'm going to go play with Chris or whatever. Or I yelled it at my mom as I was leaving. I'm like, okay, Mom, I'm going to play football. I'll be back, you know, later. And it didn't get the confirmation. So she didn't know. I mean, that maybe only happened once or twice. You know, you learned very quickly and make sure they know where you're going. Otherwise you'll be called back. But rarely was I ever called back and then released back out in the wild. It was usually I was called home, and for whatever reason I was there, whether I was in trouble. I don't know why I thought I was in trouble a lot of the time, because I didn't really do anything to get in trouble. But maybe if I didn't empty the trash. I mean, I definitely think when I started being given chores to do, I think that's when there was a little bit more of that, because I either forget to do it, genuinely forget. I wasn't like pushing it off. I just totally forgot to do it. Or yeah, like I think because it became my job to like empty the trash in the house. So we're like, you know, 7 or 8 trash cans, empty the trash, put it in the trash can every day. And then on Tuesdays, I think it was just Tuesdays. I don't think we had 2 trash days. I think it was just Tuesdays. Take the trash out and put it at the front. And then at the end of the day, or when I came back, to put the trash can back on the side of the house. And so maybe I forgot to do that or something, but it usually wasn't that. It was usually, there was like a compounding effect. Like I had, missed that. I was also, typically it was my job initially to empty the dishwasher. Now I'm not talking like 3 or 4 years old. This is, as I'm like school age, I'm going to school. Okay. Now I have chores, and usually there was an allowance with it at different points, but it was to empty the dishwasher. And then as I got older, it was to do the dishes or to help with the dishes. Like every few days I would do the dishes, or in certain circumstances. It was more just like help out with the family home, like, participate in this. Vacuum the floors was another one. And yeah, so I think that was probably it. It would be, I would do a chore too quickly because I was eager to get outside, or I forgot to do the trash. A lot of times it was genuinely, I just forgot, because it's not a priority for me. This is not like high on my list. But I remember we did at one point, oh my gosh, they had a whiteboard. And my dad, like he was very handy, man. He didn't cut the strips. I think he actually found like just black tape that you could put, and he made lines on it, is my point. Vertical, horizontal, big board. And it would have, I don't even remember what the categories were. I think it was like chores, and it had the chores listed out, and then it had homework and all these other things. And every day that I did any of those things, I got a gold star or a red star, a green star. And like, if I had a whole month where I had stars on every single day, I got something special. We went out to eat, rented a movie. I think, I don't know if I was old enough at that point. I don't think I had a Nintendo at that point, so I couldn't get like a Nintendo game or something, but like, there would be a reward. We'd go out to KB Toys or Toys R Us and I could get a Transformer or something. It was that kind of thing. So I remember there were motivational things my parents did. I didn't get too much of the stick, at that age. It was more like carrot type stuff. But yeah, I mean, I remember there would be times where I'd legitimately forget to do something, or I would do it too quickly, and then I'd get called back and say, you did not clean the bathroom. I did clean the bathroom. No, look. And I do remember, though, like one time getting frustrated because it was like, no, look at the bathtub. I'm like, I am looking. It looks fine. She's like, look closer. So I look closer, and I'm like, yeah, if you're like this far away from the bottom of the tub, yes, maybe it's not as clean as it might seem, but who's putting their face that close to the tub? We stand in the tub. We don't, back then baths were still kind of a thing, but it was like, I just remember getting like, how close are you going to look at it? Well, if you get a microscope out and you focus in, you can see the little amoeba crawling around there. You didn't clean it well enough. Well, nobody's using a microscope. Like, all we do is step into it, rinse off, clean ourselves off and step back out. It doesn't need to be that clean. I remember that distinctly. I don't remember all that went down, but I just remember being flummoxed. Like, why are you looking at it that close? Why do you have to get so close to the tub? Why can't you just look at it from here? Because it looked great from here. You can't see it from my house. It looks fine. But it would be things like that, I think, is primarily. That meant I screwed up a chore, forgot a chore, left something unplugged. I know that sounds petty, but it's like, things can add up. And obviously, I'm a kid. I don't remember like getting into serious trouble. I do remember a few times. I remember, and this will be for a different later episode, but I remember the only time I ever got detention was for gambling with fake money. Oh, screw it. I'll just tell that right now. So yeah, Adrian, I remember you, Adrian and Andrew. They're like the kind of like the cool kids of our class, kind of our age group. And so we had recess indoors one time because it was raining outside or something. And so everybody was you had to busy yourself. I think our teacher had like the Ewok village and some other little toys, but you pretty much just had to figure out what you could do for fun for 20 minutes in the classroom. And under the table, there was a table, like one of those fold out tables. Under the table, the cool kids gathered, Adrian, Andrew, and like 2 or 3 other kids. And I was curious as to what was going on. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're playing a game. I was like, okay. And at this point, I had never seen a deck of cards. We didn't have a deck of cards in our house. It wasn't taboo or anything. It just, we didn't have them. We had the book game. We had Monopoly. We had Journey Through Europe. We had a bunch of, weird games and everything, King's Court, but we didn't have a deck of cards. So I really hadn't, I think I'd seen them maybe, in a Batman episode, the Joker or something like that, but I never really played with cards. I didn't know what the deal was with them. And we had at that time to teach math, we had fake money. We had like cardboard. I mean, I say cardboard, but they were much thinner. They were kind of like, it was like the white cardboard, but it was just the right thickness. It was really cool. It was like you couldn't really bend them easily, but they weren't, I don't know how to describe it, but they kind of felt like legitimate money. Anyway, you had quarters, nickels, dimes, pennies. No dollar bills. I think they had dollar bills, but they weren't as cool because they were like literally just the flimsy paper that didn't seem anything like it. But these were like high quality prints on the actual coins, or on these pieces of robust cardboard. And so they gave everybody, like, I'm just sitting there and they put in front of everybody to count out a certain amount of quarters, nickels, dimes, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, this is kind of lame. This feels like I'm learning something. Put those out there, and then they would dish out the cards, face down, I believe. I don't remember the details at this point. And all I remember is, okay, look at your cards. And I don't know. It was like they were trying to imitate gambling or something. I don't know. But all I remember is just showing them my cards because I didn't know what the cards meant. So I just kind of held out the cards, and they'd go around like, okay, I'll take a penny from you. Okay, take a penny from you, or you lose a penny. So it was like on autopilot. I had no idea what the heck was going on. They weren't explaining it very well. Maybe other kids knew what was happening. I didn't. But the teacher, somebody told on us. So like, I just remember this girl like walking over like, Miss So-and-so, they're under the desk. Look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, we're under the desk. I think that might be, but you got to remember back then, that was how we avoided, if there was a nuclear bomb went off, we had to be under a table. So it was a safe place to be under a table. We didn't actually have nuclear drills when I was growing up. I think that was a little before my time, but anywho, I know I'm running over time, but I want to finish this. So the teacher busted up our little gambling operation, and we got a notice for detention where we were going to have to stay after class or stay after school next week for detention. My mother was furious. I got the stare. And the biggest problem was she did not believe that I had no idea what gambling was, because I was like, what is gambling? I don't even know, like, what, I don't know what I got in trouble for. Like my palms were sweating. I was terrified, because I'd never gotten detention before. This is like third grade, I think, second or third grade. A lot happened in third grade, apparently. Second or third grade, maybe fourth grade even. I don't know. No, probably not fourth grade. It's like second or third grade. So, but I'd never gotten in trouble. Never gotten in trouble. Up until that point, the only disciplinary action that was ever levied against me was Miss Scally, who was our lunch. She wasn't the lunch lady. She was the cafeteria, I don't know, watchdog. You know, if things got too loud, she'd blow a whistle. Nobody talka. But yeah, it was, and you got to check a maka. If you disobeyed and she caught you, like if she said it was too loud and she blew the whistle and said no talking and she caught you talking, you got to check a maka. And she showed it somewhere, but, she had a sheet somewhere apparently. But or at least she apparently did. That was the thing. You get a check mark. You get a check mark by your name. You got 3 check marks and you had to sit by yourself, I think was the punishment. But anyway, it was one of those things where she called, she made everybody be silent because we were getting too loud apparently. And some kid asked me if I wanted to trade like my, I don't know, whatever I had in my lunch with whatever it is. But that's a whole other thing where that almost never happened. And I was like, I pretty much was like, we're not allowed to talk. And she caught me saying that to him. So he said something to me instead of me just going like this, which is what I did in the future at that point. Cause I was like, I'm not going to risk anything. He knows darn well for whatever reason. I thought I needed him. We can't talk. Don't talk now. Oh, you get a check mark. And so that was devastating for me. That was terrifying for me. I got a check mark from Miss Scally. That was the only time I ever got one though. Like I said, I learned my lesson. I'm just not going to catch me talking out of turn. So this was a really big deal. But like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. And you could not call what I was doing gambling. And it was with fake money. Like it wasn't even like when it was done, the money just went all back into a bag. Like there wasn't like our, coins. This was just the common pool. Like this was just the teacher had a money thing to help us learn money. And she had like little clock things to help us learn clocks. So it wasn't even like we were given or we had to pay for fake money to learn how to count. It was just, that was school property. And so when we were done, it all just went back into school property. But apparently it was the mechanism of gambling. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know we were playing cards. I was part of the cool kids. The cool kids let me be under the table with them. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm doing stuff. And here, look at my cards. I didn't know anything. And I guess that was hard for my parents to believe, but I think eventually she did. And again, everything is exaggerated in your head. As I said, 5 minutes feels like an hour. So she probably wasn't angry that long or even that angry, but it was because it was just a disciplinary thing. Like I got detention. That was not okay. You do not come home with disciplinary action from school. So ultimately it all worked out. Like she believed me. She came to understand, okay, no, he really has no idea what this is. So hey, it was an educational time because we looked in the code of behavior. We were given a code of behavior at the beginning of the year. We were supposed to read it, I think, but I never did because I just was never going to get in trouble. I thought I would have to do something on purpose to get in trouble. Didn't realize I could get in trouble just by not knowing. Hey, ignorance is no excuse, right? Learned that at a young age. And the code of behavior said, this is what gambling is. And even then, like, obviously I know what it is now, but even then I'm still the concept. Like, why do I get money for playing a game? Like it didn't really click. But the bottom line was just even if it's fake money, do not use money, real or fake, when in conjunction with a game or when doing anything really. Unless you're buying something or selling something, you should not be using money. I think that's the kind of the takeaway. I didn't fully understand, but I saw it there in the code of behavior. It's this little thing, gambling. Do not gamble on school property. So I don't know. I don't know how much I really actually learned, but when I went for detention, I think it was supposed to be like an hour. Which again, I mean, for a kid, 5 minutes is an hour. An hour is like 10 hours. It's like a day. It's horrible. And it was after school. Like, this is when I'm supposed to be doing fun stuff. But I don't know if it was prearranged with my parents or not. So what you're supposed to do when you get detention for breaking the code of behavior is that you have to write that section of the code of behavior like 50 times or something, or for the hour. I think I was only in there for like 10 minutes. I wrote it twice and they're like, you can go. Because, I mean, the school knows you. It's an elementary school. The student body is very small. And, so I'd been in school for at least, it was 3 or 4 years to that point, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and either second or third grade. I think it was third grade because second grade was Miss Spiller's, that whole debacle. I got transferred over Miss Lawson's class. That's a whole other story. That will be another story. But it might have been Miss Garber's class in third grade. Yeah. So I was, the school knew me. So it wasn't like, this is a troublemaker. We need to really teach him a lesson. This is like, okay, the kid had no idea what he was doing. He learned, and now he knows the definition of. So it's almost like they left me in detention just long enough for me to write it out. Okay, we know that he knows this is what gambling is and not to do it anymore. And I was allowed to leave. It was, yeah. So I don't know about the other kids. I don't know if they had a longer stay because it was like a solo thing. Nobody else was around. It was just, I was there in the office doing it. But yeah, I wasn't there for very long. I think my dad was waiting for me. So maybe they saw that and they're just like, all right, well, it's fine. So I don't know how all that shook out, how much my parents knew, didn't know, but ultimately I feel like I was let off the hook, exonerated. I didn't have to serve my full time. But yeah, gambling with fake money. And to this day, I would say that's probably my only, I mean, of course, I was speeding, I guess, but not like reckless, just going 6 or 7 over and the cop wasn't cool with it. I don't know. So I've gotten in a few things of trouble, but that was one of my biggest ones. And that's what told me I don't want to ever get in trouble again. So there you go. There's the story. Lots of stuff that I remembered. Holy cow. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to remember things, even if they are dangerous and dark and scary. Anyway, thanks for hanging with me for the extra time. I will talk to you next time.